What happens when one of Hollywood's greatest legends steps onto a morning show and refuses to play by anyone else's rules? What you're about to witness is one of the tensest, most unforgettable moments in live television history. Kevin Costner, never one to hold back, faced off against Michael Strahan on Good Morning America. What began as a routine promotional interview quickly spiraled into something nobody anticipated. The tension was thick. Words cut sharper than anyone expected. And by the end, Costner delivered a shutdown so devastating that Strahan was left speechless, and the entire studio sat in stunned silence. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment sharing your thoughts on celebrities who refuse to back down. Now, let's see what went down. The Good Morning America studio buzzed with its usual morning energy. Michael Strahan sat behind the desk, his signature smile in place, cameras rolling live. Kevin Costner, the guest of honor, was there to promote his latest Western series, already generating major buzz across the industry. The producers expected a feel-good segment, the kind of clip that goes viral and keeps viewers glued through commercial breaks. As the cameras rolled, Strahan leaned in, charm dialed to maximum. Kevin Costner, welcome back to Good Morning America. Always a pleasure to have you here. Costner nodded, settling into his chair with the calm confidence of someone who had done this thousands of times. Thanks for having me, Michael. Let's talk about this new series. Strahan glanced at his notes. You're returning to the Western genre, which of course is part of your legacy. But some critics are saying it feels like you're retreading old ground. What's your response? There was a brief, almost imperceptible pause. Costner's eyes narrowed just slightly. Retreading old ground, he said slowly. That's an interesting way to frame it. Strahan, apparently oblivious to the shift, pressed on. Well, you've done Dances with Wolves, Open Range, and Yellowstone has been huge. Some people wonder if you're just going back to the same well. Costner leaned back, jaw tightening. Michael, let me ask you something. When you played football, did you throw only one type of pass? Or did you adjust to what the defense gave you? Strahan blinked. I was a defensive end, so I didn't throw passes. But I see your point. Do you? Costner's voice remained calm, but the weight behind it was unmistakable. Because what you just said suggests you think telling stories about the American West is somehow limiting or repetitive. These stories are about the foundation of this country. Struggle, survival, morality. What people are willing to sacrifice for something bigger than themselves. To call that retreading old ground misses the entire point. The studio went silent. Strahan shifted uncomfortably. I didn't mean to imply your work isn't important, he said quickly. I was just asking the question people are asking. Some people? Costner's gaze locked on him. Or the producers who wrote your card? Strahan forced a laugh. Come on, we're just having a conversation. Are we? Costner's tone remained measured, but it was razor-sharp. Because it seems to me you're more interested in creating a headline than understanding what we're trying to do with this series. Kevin, that's not fair, Strahan said defensively. Fair? Costner raised an eyebrow. Respectful would be doing your homework before sitting down. Respectful would be understanding that just because something is set in the same era doesn't make it the same story. You want to talk about respect? Let's talk about how this industry works. How morning shows churn through guests like products on an assembly line, asking surface-level questions designed to get a reaction instead of meaningful conversation. The tension in the room was unbearable. Strahan's co-host exchanged nervous glances. The camera crew froze. Live television had no safety net. Strahan tried a smile, relying on media training. I think you might be reading too much into a simple question, Kevin. A simple question? Costner nodded slowly. You know what? You're right. It was simple. Lazy, actually. And Michael, I expected better from you. Strahan's smile vanished. You heard me. Costner continued, steady, unwavering. You've been in this business long enough to know better. You've sat in that chair long enough to know the difference between a question that generates engagement and a question that actually means something. But instead, Costner said, his voice calm but cutting, you went for the cheap shot, the angle that makes me look stuck in the past, hoping I'd get defensive so you could have your viral moment. Strahan shook his head, frustrated. That's not what this is about. Then what is it about? Costner pressed. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're more concerned with being the personality than being the journalist. Strahan leaned forward, his voice sharper than viewers usually heard. Kevin, I've interviewed presidents, athletes, actors, musicians. I've always shown respect, and now you're questioning my integrity on live television. I'm questioning your preparation, Costner corrected. There's a difference, and if you feel defensive about it, maybe that tells you something. I'm not defensive, Strahan shot back, though every muscle betrayed him. I'm confused why you're coming at me so hard over a standard interview question. Costner shook his head slowly. That's the problem, Michael. You think it's standard? You think it's acceptable to invite someone onto your show, ask for their time, their energy, their willingness to be vulnerable in front of millions, and then hit them with questions that show you haven't bothered to understand what they're actually doing. Do you know what this series is about? Do you know what makes it different from anything I've done before? Strahan opened his mouth, then closed it. The silence was deafening. That's what I thought, Costner said quietly. You don't know because you didn't ask. You didn't care to find out. You saw Western, saw my name, and figured you could coast through this on charm and a teleprompter. That's not true, Strahan insisted. I know about the series. It's about a family torn apart by the Civil War, brothers on opposite sides, loyalty, betrayal. You read the press release, Costner said flatly. Congratulations. But did you watch any of it? Talk to anyone involved? Spend even 10 minutes trying to understand why this story matters, why it's different, why it needs to be told now. Or did you just show up, expecting me to do all the heavy lifting while you nod, smile, and pretend to care? The studio was silent. Even the crew stopped moving. This wasn't uncomfortable television anymore. It was a masterclass in confrontation. Strahan's jaw clenched. Maybe you're right. Maybe I didn't prepare enough. But that doesn't give you the right to disrespect me in front of our audience. Disrespect? Costner's voice rose slightly, the first hint of real heat. You want to talk about disrespect? Let me tell you what's disrespectful. Treating art like it's disposable. Reducing years of work, hundreds of people's passion and dedication, to a throwaway question meant to fill time between commercials. Acting like you're doing me a favor by having me here when the truth is, you need content, and I'm just the next warm body to fill your segment. That's not fair, Strahan snapped. We invited you here to celebrate your work. Did you? Costner challenged. Or did you invite me because my name gets clicks and your producers thought it would boost ratings? Strahan stood abruptly, sending a ripple through the studio. You don't get to come onto my show and tell me my intentions. Costner stayed seated, calm, in total control. Your show? Interesting. I thought this was Good Morning America, a platform for the network, the viewers, the tradition of broadcast journalism. But you've made it your show, Michael. Made it about you. And that's the problem. What's that supposed to mean? Strahan demanded. It means somewhere along the line, you stopped being a host and started being a brand. Costner explained, voice returning to that dangerously calm tone. You stopped asking questions because you wanted answers, and started asking questions to be part of the story. You wanted the clips, the sound bites, the moments with your face in the thumbnail. And in the process, you forgot what this job is actually about. Strahan pointed at Costner, frustration boiling over. You don't know me. You don't know what I care about, what I stand for. You're right, Costner said, calm and cutting. I don't know you, Costner said. His eyes locked on Strahan. "But I know what you just showed me. And what you showed me is someone more interested in being liked than being good at their job." "That's enough," Strahan said sharply. "I think we should move on." "Move on to what?" Costner asked, voice calm but cutting. "The next superficial question? The next attempt to get me to say something controversial so you can have your moment? No, Michael. We're not moving on. We're going to have the conversation you should have been prepared for from the start." "I don't have to sit here and take this," Strahan said, shaking his head. "You're absolutely right," Costner said, standing slowly, deliberate. "You don't have to sit here. You can walk away, cut to commercial, protect your ego. But hear this. I'm being hard on you not because I dislike you, but because I think you're better than this. You have the potential to be more than just another smiling face reading questions off a card. But you've gotten comfortable, lazy, and nobody around you is willing to tell you the truth. Because you're too big, too popular, too safe to challenge." Strahan stared, momentarily speechless. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter, measured. "So, you're challenging me?" "I'm holding up a mirror," Costner replied. "What you do with what you see is up to you." The silence stretched, thick and heavy. Co-hosts exchanged uneasy glances, unsure how to intervene. In the control room, producers were likely debating whether to cut away or let this play out. Finally, Strahan sank back into his chair, expression unreadable. "Okay, let's do this your way. Tell me about the series. Tell me what I should have asked." Costner studied him for a long beat, assessing if the shift was genuine. Then slowly, he sat back, settling into the chair with deliberate control. "All right," he said. "Here's what you should have asked. You should have asked why, after spending years building Yellowstone into a cultural phenomenon, I walked away from guaranteed success to start something completely new. You should have asked what it feels like to bet everything on a story that goes against every trend in modern entertainment, to create something slow and thoughtful in a world that demands instant gratification." Strahan nodded, and this time his attention was real. "So why did you do it?" he asked. "Because I'm tired of playing it safe," Costner said, his voice filling the studio. "Tired of seeing the same stories told the same way. Tired of watching talented people compromise their vision because some executive is worried about algorithms and focus groups. This series, about brothers divided by war, families torn apart by ideology, people trying to hold on to their humanity in the face of unimaginable violence. This matters. It matters because we're living through our own division, watching families fracture over politics, communities split over beliefs, and people forget that the person they're arguing with is still human. That's heavy," Strahan said quietly. "It should be," Costner replied. "Art should be heavy. It should make you think, make you uncomfortable, hold up a mirror to society, and force us to look at ourselves honestly. But you can't explore that depth if your interview starts by asking whether I'm just repeating myself. Do you see the difference now?" Strahan was silent a moment, then nodded slowly. "I do, you're right. I should have dug deeper. It's not too late," Costner said. "We're still here. The cameras are still rolling. Ask me the real questions." Strahan took a breath. When he spoke, the defensiveness was gone. In this series, you have two brothers fighting on opposite sides of the Civil War. One believes he's fighting for freedom, the other defending his home and way of life. Neither is entirely wrong, neither entirely right. How do you navigate that moral complexity without falling into the trap of partisanship? Costner's expression shifted. This was the question he'd been waiting for. "That's exactly the challenge," he said. "And the answer is, you don't judge them. You don't tell the audience who to root for. You show their humanity, their doubt, their fears, their moments of courage and failure. You let the story live in the gray space where real people exist. You show the moments where they question everything they're fighting for." Costner continued, his voice steady. Because real people aren't heroes and villains. Real people are contradictions, capable of great love and great cruelty, sometimes in the same breath. The youngest brother in our story joins the Union Army because he believes slavery is wrong. And he's right, but he's also naive. He thinks war will be noble, clean. He learns very quickly that it is neither. His older brother stays with the Confederacy because it's his home, because his friends are there, because leaving would mean abandoning everything he's ever known. Does that make him wrong? Yes. Does it make him evil? That's more complicated. So you're asking the audience to empathize with someone fighting for the Confederacy, Strahan said, not accusing, just observing. I'm asking the audience to understand that people are products of their time and circumstances. Costner clarified. Understanding isn't the same as condoning. You can recognize why someone made the choices they made without agreeing with them. That's empathy, and we've lost a lot of that. We want everything simple, everyone clearly good or bad. But life isn't like that. History isn't like that. Strahan leaned forward, fully engaged. There's a scene in the trailer where the brothers meet on the battlefield. They recognize each other and they just freeze. Can you talk about that moment? That scene is the heart of the series, Costner said, passion breaking through his calm. These brothers haven't seen each other in 2 years. They've both changed. They've both killed. They've both watched friends die. And suddenly, in the middle of chaos, they're face to face. All the ideology, all the certainty they've clung to, it evaporates. In that moment, they're not Union and Confederate. They're not enemies. They're brothers. And they realize this war, this thing they've committed to, has cost them something they can never get back. Do they fight? Strahan asked. You'll have to watch to find out, Costner said with a slight smile. But whatever happens, it's not what you expect, and it stays with you long after it's over. Strahan nodded appreciatively. This is the conversation we should have been having from the beginning. Yes, Costner agreed. And it took a fight to get here. What does that tell you? Strahan exhaled slowly. It tells me that real conflict, honest conflict, can lead to something better if both people are willing to move past their defenses. Exactly, Costner said. That's the lesson. That's what this series is about. We could have stayed on the surface, traded pleasantries, and you'd have gotten your safe, forgettable interview. Instead, we challenged each other. We pushed back. We made each other uncomfortable. And now we're actually talking about something that matters. I appreciate you pushing me, Strahan said, sincerity in his voice. Even if it was rough? Costner asked. It had to be rough, Costner replied. You don't grow from people telling you you're great. You grow from people telling you the truth, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. Strahan smiled, and this time it wasn't his television smile. It was real. You know, Costner said, grinning. When you walked out here today, I thought this was just another interview. Easy, smooth, done in 10 minutes. And instead you got your teeth kicked in. Strahan laughed genuinely. Yeah, I did. But I needed it. We all need it sometimes, Costner said. Someone to remind us we can be better, should be better. That's what good art does. That's what good conversation does. It doesn't let you off the hook. It doesn't tell you what you want to hear. It tells you what you need to hear. Strahan extended his hand across the desk. Thank you, Kevin. Seriously. Thank you for not letting me get away with being lazy. Costner shook it firmly. Thank you for actually engaging once you got over yourself. The studio audience, which had held its collective breath for minutes, erupted into applause. Not polite, automatic applause, but energized, real. The kind that comes from witnessing authenticity. Strahan looked into the camera, focused like never before. Kevin Costner's new series premieres next week, and based on this conversation, it's going to be something special. Not because it's easy, but because it's willing to challenge us. That's what we need more of. Costner nodded. That's all any of us can do. Tell the truth as we see it, and hope it resonates with people looking for something real. As the cameras cut and the segment ended, viewers across the country sat stunned. This wasn't the morning news they expected. This was a reminder that live television, when it's truly live, when people are truly honest, can surprise us, can matter. What you just witnessed was a masterclass in not backing down, in demanding better from the people around you, and in turning conflict into something meaningful. Kevin Costner didn't shut down Michael Strahan out of ego or anger. He did it because he saw potential being wasted, talent squandered, and refused to participate in the charade. If you enjoyed this story and want more like it, hit subscribe and drop a comment below. Here's the question. Do you think Costner was too harsh on Strahan? Or did Strahan need to hear exactly what Costner told him? I want to know what you think.